London has always celebrated the lives and achievements of its foremost citizens, and some of the capital's most fascinating stories are told in its statues and its monuments.
London is littered with monuments, both ancient and modern. There are statues of our kings and queens, of pioneers and great thinkers, and of course memorials to those who have lost their lives in wars and disasters.
Probably the greatest tragedy that hit London was the Great Fire of 1666, and it started just about 100 yards up there in, look, Pudding Lane. And after it was all over, they built a monument to commemorate the fire, and here it is, the monument. It's 202 feet high, by far the highest building in Europe at the time, and it's 202 feet from the place where the fire started. And now, sadly, I've got to climb 202 feet.
The monument is the tallest freestanding stone column in the world. Designed by Sir Christopher Wren and Robert Hooke and constructed of Portland stone between 1671 and 1677, the simple Doric column is topped by a flaming copper urn to remind us of the Great Fire.
Hi, James.
Hello, Adam.
Now, you are, as I understand it, the historic buildings architect for the City of London.
That's right, yes.
So you know all about this historic building?
Well, I know quite a bit, but not everything.
Now, it's inside here, it's what, about 10 feet in diameter?
Yes, something of that order.
Why did they build it hollow?
Fundamentally, because it's cheaper and it's standard building practice to just build walls of sufficient thickness to make the building stand up. But the people who built it, especially Hooke and his close acquaintance and working colleague Wren, were men of science. Wren was an astronomer, Hooke had invented telescopes, and this was an ideal place to continue experiments they'd been conducting in 300-foot deep wells.
Right, so this is a well upside down, as it were?
Absolutely, yes.
Hooke and Wren would probably have conducted any such experiments from the basement area of the monument.
It's quite steep, isn't it?
It is.
Quite awkward too. Oh, so this is it. You reckon this was Robert Hooke's lab, as it were?
Yes.
And can you see straight up? Wow, it's quite sort of scary looking up there. Tell you what, I'd really like to try one of these pendulum experiments. Why don't you go up there and I'll wait down here and wait for the pendulum to come down?
All right, thank you very much. I'll do that.
It's a pleasure. Happy climbing.
While James climbed the 311 steps to the top of the monument, I did the very important and far less energetic job of staying in the basement and waiting for him to lower his pendulum.
2 feet.
I'm touching it, so it's obviously not central. And I reckon that, to get it to central, we'd need to bring it over this way about, something like a foot. So obviously the tower is leaning a bit, because we know that strings with weights on the end hang straight down towards the centre of the earth. Hooke knew all about that, Newton knew all about that. I'm not surprised, frankly, that the tower is leaning a bit, because not only are there buses and trucks and the underground, but also there's the river only a few yards away with huge tides rushing up and down, and the whole lot of the local gravity is going to be distorted. So I don't think it's going to fall over. Suppose I start this swinging, and I will start it swinging straight across from here to there, all right, in a straight line, and you can see that it's going to swing in a neat straight line like that. Now, if we were to go away and come back in an hour's time, what would happen would be that straight line would apparently have moved round. So instead of going like that, it would be going across this way a bit, because it will swing in a straight line in space. But meanwhile, the Earth is turning, and the Earth will turn underneath the pendulum, leaving the pendulum swinging where it was. So during the day, it will gradually move all the way around the room.
From the monument basement, it was originally possible to look right up out of the top of the copper urn into the sky. A lens at the top and a second lens at the bottom would have turned the pillar into a vertical telescope, allowing Hooke and Wren to track the Earth's movement by the stars. Sadly, this meant I would have to finally walk up those stairs if I was to see for myself.
James, I've made it. How many How many stairs do you say there were?
311 and then about another 20 or 30.
Well, I reckon you must have added a couple of hundred in for me. Now, it's getting very narrow here, isn't it? It's closing in.
Yes. This is the beginning of the vase or urn on top of the Doric column, which is what the monument is, and on top of that is the flaming orb.
Oh, I see, to represent the fire, the great fire.
Exactly.
Right. Do you mind if I don't actually climb up there?
I think it's a very good idea.
It looks very hairy to me.
Yeah.
Is it normally open at the top like that?
No, it's not. We've opened it so that you can see the sky.
Oh, wonderful.
Because this board, I'm afraid...
Oh, this board, that's why I couldn't see from below.
Exactly.
Ah.
Many of London's grandest monuments commemorate war heroes. The most famous is right at the heart of the city.
This noisy place is Trafalgar Square, home of what is probably London's best known and best loved monument, Nelson's Column. Ah, they got scaffolding all the way up. Well, I guess I better go and see what's happening up there.
Trafalgar Square was designed by Sir Charles Barry in 1838, and a couple of years later, architect William Railton started work on a column to commemorate Vice Admiral Lord Nelson, who'd been killed during his decisive victory over the French and Spanish fleets in 1805. So the square came to be called Trafalgar Square. I was lucky. I turned up during a major restoration of the entire column, which gave me a rare opportunity to see the cleaning process and a chance to see Horatio himself up close. Unsurprisingly, London's biggest pigeon perch gets pretty dirty. More than 20 years' worth of pigeon poo is built up, not to mention the grime left by thousands of daily visitors. It's not just the column itself that's being spruced up. The faithful bronze lions that guard Nelson are getting a clean too. The bronze that sculptor Sir Edward Landseer used to cast the lions is said to have come from the melted down cannons of the French fleet. The lions were part of the original design for the square, but they were actually added about 20 years after Nelson's Column was erected. But that didn't mean they were not going to get a nice new wax and polish.
Right, so can I have a go?
By all means.
So just shove it in there.
Not too much. Not too
Like
much.
that?
Yep. Just paint it on. Just spread it around.
Oh yeah. That's not bad, is it?
Well, you can see the colours.
Do you think I can make a lion waxer?
That's the one.
I'm going to apply for a job waxing lions. Doesn't seem to have any effect at all.
It will.
Will it?
Time.
How long do I have to do it for?
Well, until you get the shine coming through.
It's worse than cleaning my shoes.
Takes a while.
Come back next week.
I was surprised to find out there was even more brass on the column itself, but this time I wasn't volunteering to help clean it.
Now, Adrian, what on earth is this? Is this bronze?
This is all bronze. There's 4 bas reliefs at the base of this column.
This is bas relief.
This is a bas relief. Yes.
Okay, and so these aren't carved. These are casts.
These are actually cast, and they're made up of a number of pieces, which we couldn't really tell before the wax was removed. But now the wax has been removed.
So this arm, because to have a mould that included this detailed hand would be impossible.
It would be, exactly.
Yeah.
The 4 bronze bas reliefs were made from French guns captured by Admiral Nelson himself, and they depict his greatest triumphs. The victory off Cape St. Vincent, the bombardment of Copenhagen, the victory of the Nile, and finally, Trafalgar. Nelson's Column is frequently used as a measurement of height. However, during the restoration it was found that instead of towering 185 feet above Trafalgar Square, the column, including the 17-foot statue of Nelson, is a mere 169 feet and 5 inches high. It still felt pretty high to me when I got to the top.
It looks wonderful. What are these sort of lumpy bits?
These are areas where there was mortar which had been put in the past to possibly defects in the stone.
Oh, wow.
So we've taken the mortar out, we've taken out as little stone as possible, and then we're now fashioning masonry indents to suit the hole. So
This is cement, is it?
no, this is actually Craigley sandstone.
You mean the same as this stuff?
Exactly the same. The quarry's no longer open, but we were donated some Craigley sandstone from Watson Stonecraft in Edinburgh. So we were really lucky actually to get this.
But hang on a sec, how do you get it to that shape?
The guys have got banker tables that they work on. They set this in a piece of sand, and then they just carve it from the stone, get it into a square shape, take a template of this, and then fashion the indent to suit the hole.
That sounds quite complicated. How long does it take?
This one took a day and a half to do.
Just to, wow.
And he's got to fix it yet as well. But the level of masonry, degree of masonry craft skill to get that is first class.
That's going to be fantastic, isn't it? You'll hardly notice that. By the time it's stuck in and got a bit dirty, it'll look just the same.
Exactly. Well, the stone will oxidise over a period of time, and it will actually start dulling down to a grey colour.
I'm lucky to have come face to face with Horatio. Nelson's Column is a famous landmark, but not many people get to stroke his fevered brow. A clean-up like this happens only every 20 years or so, but it ensures this unique monument is preserved for generations to come. London's monuments come in all shapes and sizes and date back from all sorts of periods in our history.
But Britain's oldest monument is down here on the embankment. It's 3,500 years old, and it's Cleopatras Needle.
The 60-foot-high granite obelisk was originally erected in the ancient Egyptian city of Heliopolis on the orders of Thutmose III around 1450 BC. It was presented to the United Kingdom in 1819 by the Viceroy of Egypt. But Cleopatra's Needle didn't come to Britain until 1877, when Victorian engineers finally found a way to move the 200-ton obelisk and erect it using a kind of crane on London's embankment. So how on earth did the Egyptians manage it 3,500 years ago?
This is my obelisk, okay? I know it's a bit crude, but it gives the idea. And I want to put it on this plinth here, so it stands up like that, okay? It weighs an awful lot. So the Egyptians wouldn't have had the cranes to lift it up like that. They would have had to have a very cunning way of doing it. So what they did was to build walls around this. So there's a wall here, there we go, push that down there, and there's a wall here, and I'm going to put a door in this hole like this, so it's blocked up for the moment. And the idea is to get this obelisk balanced up here and then very slowly tilt it over so it lands on the base, and then it only requires a tiny push to get it upright, and with luck it would be a few blokes with ropes. But how do they get it up here? Because the Egyptians didn't have huge cranes, but they had an enormous amount of cunning and an enormous amount of sand, because most of Egypt is desert. So first of all they filled this. Of course this wasn't really a box, there was just an empty space here. They would have tilted it out so they had an enormous ramp from miles away, probably hundreds of yards away over there, and then they fill the whole of this inside with sand as well. And then they could have got a load of blokes with ropes to pull this thing up this long, long ramp here, and as long as the ramp is shallow enough, you can pull huge heavy weights with men with ropes. And they gradually pull it right across until it rests just on this edge like that. And then chaps, brave men, go in with shovels and start taking away the sand from the inside. And of course, as the sand disappears from under this end of the obelisk, with luck, it'll begin to fall down. I'm quite glad that I wasn't underneath the end of this obelisk, because there must have been moments here when it could have gone at any time. Ah! Very nearly. You see, the idea, if I got it just a little bit slower, it would have gone onto there, and then you would have had some blokes standing up here on this wall with ropes. And to be honest, it's really not a great effort to push it. Well, I've still got some sand on my plinth. It needed a bit more care. I think maybe those Egyptian engineers were a bit more skillful than I am. Anyway, to find out about the obelisk, I've got a chap down here who knows everything. This is Chris Elliott, who's writing a book about Egyptian London. So Chris, tell me about this thing. It comes from Egypt. Is it really Cleopatra's Needle?
Actually, it's got nothing to do with Cleopatra.
Oh.
Afraid not. It was only set up in Alexandria approximately 20 years after she died. It was on the beach. It fell down in about the 14th century in an earthquake. It had been set up there by Caesar Augustus in about 10 BC. Right. He had taken it from where it was originally set up, which was outside the Temple of the Sun at Heliopolis,
Right.
now one of the suburbs of Cairo.
Right. So, this is presumably bronze, is it?
Yes.
Oh, makes a good noise, yes. Now, what are these chaps doing here?
Well, they're guarding the obelisk,
Right.
and technically speaking, they're the wrong way round. They should
No.
be facing the other way, yeah. But that's if you want to get picky.
Right, so what should they be doing facing the other way?
Well, they're normally flanking the sun disk.
Okay, so they're looking out east and west, as it were.
And the obelisk is a symbol of the sun god. The ancient Egyptians set them up in pairs, either side of a temple doorway or gateway, as symbols of the sun god. And originally, the top, the pyramidion, the little pyramid at the top,
Yeah.
would have been gold plate tips, and you
Oh,
can imagine
wow.
what they look like when the
Quite
sun
something.
caught them.
So, if this isn't Cleopatra's Needle, what do we call it?
Well, Tutmosis' obelisk would be the most correct,
How about Tut's pointy thing?
as long as you don't get him mixed up with Tutankhamun.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh, well, we'll think of something.
Solid stone statues and monuments have to be able to support their own weight. For instance, with stone statues, every outstretched arm needs to rest on something in order to stay up. But bronze cast statues appear in all manner of elaborate positions.
Obviously, solid bronze statues would be incredibly heavy. But luckily, thousands of years ago, some brilliant inventor came up with a way of making them hollow.
This is the UK's oldest working foundry, Morris Singer, established in 1848. The Singer Foundry has cast many of London's best-known statues.
Now, Alex, you make bronze statues, is that right?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Now, when you bash one, it's obviously hollow. But surely, if you pour bronze into a mould, it's going to fill it up and you'll get a solid statue. How do you make hollow statues?
Well, we do it by using the lost wax method.
Lost wax?
Yes, so we create a wax copy or a wax replica of the pattern that we're given.
So this is the pattern?
Yeah.
So talk me through the process.
We cover him with silicon rubber.
And then
Sticky.
you just slap it on, do you?
Yeah, then we just slap it on, and gravity will just sort of help it sort of fall into place. How it did.
But it does spread out quite nicely, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And goes all over the bench, I see. But anyway,
Well, yes. I mean, that's just
that's no doubt happened
part of
before.
it, yeah.
The rubber, when dry, is then peeled off and placed in a resin case to keep its shape.
Now you're not going to pour the bronze in here.
No, we don't. We start now by making the wax copy using this silicon rubber.
Right. So how do you do that?
Well, we start by painting 2 or 3 coats into the mould.
Paint the wax
Paint
in.
the wax
So
in.
you've got liquid wax. You've melted it. Right.
Hot liquid wax like this.
Right.
It is very hot.
Can I paint a little bit in, or
Yes, you certainly
will I
can,
make
yeah.
a mess of it?
No. It'll be fine.
Anywhere?
Just anywhere you like.
Okay. I always knew I had an artistic streak in me. I don't think I've ever painted the inside of somebody's ear before.
You're putting the wax back in the ear, really, aren't you?
The two sides of the mould are clamped together. Then Alex poured hot wax into the mould.
Oh, wonderful green glue.
And then we'll just swirl it around and count to 20. You need to constantly rotate it as well, just so you get an even coating.
Fantastic.
There you go, that's the hollow wax.
That's
made.
it. So now you've got a positive copy of your pattern.
Yes.
Made in hollow wax.
Made in hollow wax.
We left the wax to dry a bit and then carefully took it out of the mould.
Ah! Hey! Hey! That's not bad, is it? That's terrific. You can see it's all hollow, and it's not as thick as that edge. It's only about, thinner than my fingers anyway. Yeah, it's...
We dipped our wax head in a liquid ceramic.
Okay, so this is now ceramic.
Yes, this is, yeah.
This will harden into stuff like China.
Yes, it will do, yes, yeah,
Right.
very much like China, yeah.
And that's on both the outside and the inside.
And on the inside, you can see on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll just place this in here and just coat it.
Oh, I can do this. It's a sandpit, isn't it?
It is a big, he's taken a lot. That should be fine.
That'll do, will it?
Just empty it.
Once the ceramic is hardened, the wax can be melted out to make space to pour in the molten bronze. It runs through channels into the space where the wax was, and then it's left to cool in the ceramic shell. You can see on the side of the head the channels used for the molten bronze to flow into the sculpture. These will be removed, leaving only an elegant, hollow bronze head.
Oh, it comes off very clean, doesn't it?
It does come off very clean, yeah.
The process of lost wax casting hasn't really changed since ancient times. Who knows, maybe the Colossus of Rhodes was cast this way.
So, there you have it. They start with a solid plaster pattern. From that, they make a hollow wax replica, very, very light. And from that, they melt the wax out and they make this solid, well, it's not solid, it's hollow, but wow, it's heavy. This bronze replica. And that is fantastic.
New statues and monuments continue to be unveiled all over London, and many are far removed from the classical style of the 18th and 19th centuries. Sometimes they deeply divide public opinion. But however our new monuments are received, they continue to tell the ongoing story of our ever-changing culture.
In St. Paul's, Christopher Wren had them write, "If you want a monument, look around you." And London is like that. If you want to know about the story and the history of London, look at its statues and its monuments.